Do you listen to warnings? If there is a hot and windy day forecast, do you make preparations in case of fire? Warnings are important as they give us time to prepare for what is coming. In fact, we would be silly not to heed the advice given and plan accordingly. Now, Jesus gives some advice, and it applies to you and to me. We live in a time where there is so much deception. But then again, I don't have to tell you that. People are being caught up daily in the trap of false promises, lies, and in many cases it costs them quite dearly. Most of us think that it won't happen to us, that we're alert to what has been termed fake news. Surely the evening news that we watch is telling us the truth? Sadly, that is not always the way it is. We've heard it said, never believe what you read in the paper. But in reality, most people do. So what am I saying? Well, really, it is Jesus who says this, and we read it in Matthew chapter 24. He says, there will be many. And he's talking about false prophets, messiahs, along with signs and wonders. And he says they will come and deceive many, even the elect. That is, they will deceive those who are God's chosen ones. We need to be on the alert. He goes on to say, see, I have warned you ahead of time. Now, we could simply say that the world is messed up, but there's a lot more to it than just that. Certainly, sin is the problem, and we know that Jesus is the answer to sin. However, the events of our time, those challenging things that are happening to us right now around us, are accelerating to the point where good is being called bad and bad good. Our values are completely and totally mixed up. So what can we do about it? Oh, there's an old story about a driver travelling down the road much faster than he really should have been travelling. And another driver came along and flagged him down, opened his window and called out, "Pig!" before continuing on his way. Now, the first driver was incensed because he'd been called a pig. He was angry, and so he drove even faster. He went around the next corner and ran straight into a very big pig. Simply, he didn't listen to the warning. In fact, he did hear it, but he processed it according to his own understanding and without taking heed. We would be silly in view of all that's happening in our time to ignore it completely. But then, here is the solution. James 4 verse 8. Come close to God. Some versions say draw close to God and God will come close to you. Wash your hands, purify your hearts, for your loyalty is divided between God and the world. In other words, get right with God. We are still living in the time of hope and opportunity. 2 Corinthians 6, 1 and 2 says it like this. We beg you, don't let the grace that you receive from God be for nothing. God says, I heard you at the right time and I gave you help on the day of salvation. I tell you that the right time is now. The day of salvation is now, the scripture says. Now, it won't always be, but it is now. The answer is simply in developing our relationship with Jesus, growing in our faith and witness, and living a life filled with love for God and his people. In fact, all people. I close with these beautiful verses from Psalm 119, from the Message Bible, verse 65. Be good to your servant God, as well as to your word. Train me in the common sense. I'm thoroughly committed to living your way. Before I learned to answer you, I wandered all over the place. But now I'm in step with your word. You are good and the source of good. Train me in your goodness. Have a wonderful week and remember that you are blessed to be a blessing.